So kind of a tragedy, therefore. It's got to be tough. It's got to be tough.
An Audrain County woman is dealing with the loss of a longtime friend after a deadly fire. Good afternoon, I'm Brittany Pieper.
And I'm Sheila Mead. Thanks for joining us. Firefighters responded to the blaze at her mobile home just north of Mexico yesterday morning and found the woman she cared for dead. KOMU 8's Chris Gothner sat down with the chief of Little Dixie Fire Protection District today, and tells us what he learned.
Brittany and Shale, Chief Kenneth Hoover told me today officials think someone was smoking in bed, causing a blaze that destroyed the mobile home. Hoover says Audrain County woman Sharon Brower cared for her friend, 56-year-old Kathy Hendren. Firefighters found Hendren dead in the kitchen when they arrived. Hoover believes she tried to escape the flames, but it was too late. They believe Hendren died of smoke inhalation. He says Brower was shaken up, and stunningly, this isn't the first loss she's dealt with recently.
This last summer or fall, Miss Brower's husband died outside fighting, or was in a garden and burning some brush and grass, and was overcome by that fire and died in that fire outside in a field behind the house. So kind of a tragedy, therefore.
The American Red Cross says they're caring for 3 adults that were displaced in the fire. Medics treated Brower on scene.
Columbia police arrested a 17-year-old in connection to a string of armed robberies last December. Terrence Harvey is charged with 3 counts of robbery, kidnapping, and armed criminal action. He's suspected of assisting 31-year-old Jafari Boss in the armed robberies of a gas station, a motel, and a few restaurants over the course of 1 week in December. Officers said they obtained video surveillance of Harvey and Boss together after one of the robberies. Harvey's bond is set at $300,000.
There are now 3 finalists for the site of a new elementary school in East Columbia. At a work session Thursday, Columbia Public Schools listened to engineering site evaluations for potential locations. The 3 are located on Route WW near Old Hawthorne on Rolling Hills Road and on Richland Road as well. The new school is being built due to overcrowding at Cedar Ridge Elementary. Right now, some students have classes in trailers to accommodate the crowds.
We would really like to have the running water, for the kitchen and, just some of the basics, and not have a lot of our students be outside in trailers.
And we know with some of the growth going on out in the east, we need to build a school that can hold the number of kids we want it to hold for the east side.
Columbia Public Schools hope to have the new school built by 2018. Are you tired of the winter weather yet? Well, it's not going away anytime soon. Let's send it over to Sydney Jackson for a look at your weather.
Thanks, Shale. Yeah, we have some freezing rain on the way for this evening. Taking a look at our radar, you can see that starting to move on through towards central Missouri, and that's going to continue on through this evening. May see a little bit of ice out there, but taking a look at our current temperatures, actually not too chilly out there. 29 in Columbia, 31 over in Boonville. Sedalia checking in right at 32 degrees. Not much of a cool down overnight tonight. Right around 29 for the overnight low, with that freezing rain continued throughout the evening. Definitely want to be cautious out on the roadways as we do have that chance for some ice. And I'll have your update for snow tomorrow coming up in just a little bit.
It's not exactly breaking news that it has been freezing out this week, and that weather has some dreaming of a nice sandy beach.
Well, a recent survey says people are willing to sacrifice a lot to make those dreams a reality. KOMU 8's Michael Downa is in the studio after a day of figuring out how much.
Thanks. The weather makes people want to head towards warmer climates. In fact, a recent survey found some Americans are willing to not pay their mortgage in order to get away. Well, I hit Columbia streets to see what Columbians would be willing to part with to go on vacation.
I would give someone else my coat if I could go inside.
If someone would be willing to give up their coat just to go inside, what would they be willing to part with for a vacation? A mortgage payment?
Possibly, very possibly.
During this harsh winter, 12% of Americans said they would skip out on paying their bills to go on a vacation from the cold, according to a Tripping.com survey. Well, what else would you give up?
What am I willing to give up? I could walk to work for a couple weeks easy. I'd get my car for a couple weeks.
The cold weather.
Dinners.
Dinners?
And mortgage payments.
And mortgage payments.
Just to get away.
I don't think that I would skip a mortgage payment. I do love my home, but
maybe skip a couple of meals. I could do that.
So the motivation to leave winter behind is there, but is anyone acting on it? A travel agency says yes.
Anytime it snows like this on the ground, the phone starts ringing at a rate way above what it normally does.
But usually, just because it's cold out doesn't mean more travel.
As far as somebody calling today to leave in 2 weeks is very unusual. But we're getting a lot of those this week.
So mortgage payments, cars, dinners. Seems like a lot to give up, but Price says it doesn't have to be that way.
You don't have to sacrifice. You just have to prepare.
The survey also found people would be willing to give up things like alcohol, cigarettes, and coffee just to be able to go on vacation. Now, I personally don't have a vacation plan, but I'm glad to be back inside the studio.
Fatal accidents on Missouri highways are up 18% this year compared to last year. So far this year, there have been 87 fatal accidents in Missouri, according to MoDOT and the Highway Patrol. At this time last year, there were only 71. MoDOT officials say multiple problems factor into the increase. There's been an uptick in motorcycle fatalities, which may be due to a more mild winter this year, and there are 10 recorded pedestrian deaths on highways across the state. Also, of this year's fatal accidents, 68% of those motorists were not wearing a seatbelt.
You know, this is the same time where we do welcome people to start wearing their belts. Knowing our state's less than 80% wearing belt, it's time to pick that number up.
The national average for seatbelt use is 87%, but it's only 80% in Missouri. President Obama speaks out against Republican criticism and details on an unusual manslaughter case. KOMU 8's Michael Lindquist has your First Nation report.
President Obama mocked Republican predictions that his policies would harm America's economy during a speech to the Democratic National Committee today. The president made these remarks during the winter meetings of the DNC. President Obama also praised Walmart's announcement that they'll begin giving wage hikes to hourly employees, as he called for an increase in the federal minimum wage. He also mentioned persisting on immigration reform just days after a federal judge suspended implementation of his executive orders. The former First Lady of Virginia will spend a year behind bars on corruption charges. Maureen McDonald, wife of former Governor Bob McDonnell, was sentenced to serve that time at a federal prison close to home. A jury in September convicted the McDonalds of doing favors for a businessman in exchange for more than $165,000 in gifts. At sentencing, McDonnell apologized to the people of Virginia and said her marriage is broken and her reputation is shattered. A man who assaulted a soccer referee who later died pleaded guilty to manslaughter today in Detroit. Basil Saad punched a referee during a soccer match, resulting in the referee's death. Witnesses said as the referee was about to issue a red card, Saad punched him, knocking him unconscious. 2 days later, the referee died. Saad could face anywhere from 8 to 15 years in prison. And frigid temperatures plaguing most of the country have made their way down south, and Florida residents are having to cope with the cold. We all know about that. Temperatures in Tampa got as low as 34 degrees, which left the city under a freeze warning. Farmers are spraying cold water on crops to protect them from frigid temperatures, and safari staff are working to make sure animals stay warm overnight. And that's your first look around the nation. Now here's your world news.
The gunman responsible for 2 fatal attacks in Denmark last weekend was buried today in Copenhagen. Hundreds of people, mostly men, gathered at the Islamic Society of Denmark for the burial ceremony of Omar al-Hussein. Last Saturday, the 22-year-old Danish Muslim opened fire on a cafe and Jewish synagogue, killing 2. He was killed Sunday in a shootout with police. The funeral was open to the public, and police estimate about 500 people attended. Libyan officials say at least 45 people died in 3 suicide bombings in the eastern part of the country today. An army spokesman said the deadliest of the 3 bombings happened at a busy gas station. An attacker driving an ambulance packed with explosives rammed into the gas station where motorists were lined up. The town is about 19 miles from a stronghold of Libya's branch of ISIS.
British Prime Minister David Cameron warned Russian leader Putin today England will slap more sanctions on Russia if the ceasefire there fails a second time in the eastern Ukrainian city. Stunned residents came from their shelters to survey the destruction of their city. Both sides blame the other for breaking the ceasefire. And President Obama is welcoming British royalty to the White House. Prince Charles and his wife, the Duchess of Cornwall, will meet Obama at the Oval Office March 19th. The royals will be in the U.S. for 4 days next month. They intend to highlight the work Britain and the U.S. are doing on various issues, including climate change. And Pope Francis attempted to help with the violence between Ukraine and Russia today. He met with Ukrainian bishops to urge those involved to respect the ceasefire with Russia. The bishops said they came to Rome to tell Pope Francis the truth about the conflict in their country. The head of the Ukrainian Catholic Church said the country was not in a civil war but facing, quote, the direct aggression of our neighbor. The World Health Organization has made a breakthrough in Ebola testing.
And how a successful vaccine on monkeys could be big news for human medicine. Right now you are taking a live look over the Lake of the Ozarks. Looks like the snow is less there than it was a few days ago. This is KOMU 8 News First at 5 coverage you can count on.